All right, so today we're talking about the best real estate investing plan to be financially unbreakable in 2023. And we're really excited about this because I think that, there's a lot of conversations around, oh, this is the hottest new thing, or this is what you should be doing right now, given the market. And it's more important to talk about how we can set ourselves up financially to be unbreakable in the next 3 to 5 years, as opposed to what's the hot new thing. And we've always been about stability, and that's kind of what this is all about. So what we're going to talk about today is how to leverage your vision and your why for success, become financially unbreakable, figuring out your real estate investing plan in the upcoming year, and how to build and scale your portfolio to make work optional in the next 3 to 5 years. All right.
Oh, it's hang on, guys. Technical. There we go. I'm gonna unclick that and then present again.
I'm glad
there you go.
You knew what to do. All right, so we're Palak and Neeti, in case you don't know us. In the last 5 years, we've built a $10 million rental portfolio. We specialize in the BRRRR strategy, and we supercharge it quite a bit. I've been featured on the Bigger Pockets episode 368, but don't go and look for it right now. So if you haven't listened to it, that's a good episode. Been featured in other publications. So we were both in corporate. I was an engineer. Neeti was in finance and strategy. And what we did was we took all of our learnings from corporate and we implemented them within real estate investing. And that's what we're passionate about teaching. So we've been featured on a bunch of publications. So I'm just going to get right into it.
Let's do it.
Let's talk about financially unbreakable investing. So we're going to talk about becoming financially unbreakable first, then we're going to get into how to leverage your vision and your why, and then we're going to get into comparing strategies and, why we chose the paths that we chose, and why, 5-6 years later, we still are doing really well. It's something that's withstood the test of time, and we're going to get into all that. All right, so in the last 10 years, we've seen the market change faster and more often than any of us expected, right? The market's been so different from what we would have seen 10 years ago. We saw everything from people saying properties are overpriced, there are no deals, interest rates are too high. And then the question is constantly, should I buy, should I wait?
And can I just add to that? I think we started investing in 2015, 2016. And this is the same question that we were asking back then, which is should I buy, should I wait? And this question never goes away regardless of what the market cycle is, right? So we're wait a minute. So if this is not the right question, then what is the right question?
So in trying to keep up with these changing market, people tend to forget there are certain fundamental pillars of building wealth. And what happens is when the market changes so much, we are all so into how to keep up with it, as opposed to what are people who have been in this industry for 10, 20, 30 years, what are they doing differently, right? And that is what we want to focus on. What are the timeless principles? How do we get focused back on the fundamentals? And that's what's going to lead us to success. Excuse me. And so we're going to reframe the question to, how do I build wealth through real estate in the next 5 years? So number one is, it's not about timing the market. It's about time in the market. And if you look at people like Warren Buffett, right? These are people who've been in this industry for a long time. Longevity is something they focus on more than anything else. It's not about making money fast. It's about making your investments withstand the test of time. What can you invest in that's going to let you be invested, let you be an investor for a long period of time? That's more important. Next is stack your assets like pancakes, because assets, and we're going to get into it in more detail later, it doesn't just have one advantage, like, okay, you invested, you get some passive income. It's not just about that. There are so many advantages of building assets and holding them long term, right? And we use this analogy of pancakes because it just sticks better in our heads, right? Like stack your assets like pancakes and continue stacking them. And number 3 is to remember that there's no magic bullet. So, a lot of people, when you look at passively investing for a long period of time, you'll think about, okay, all right, I have all these properties, I'm making cash flow, great. But look at that person. That person just made 300K from that one flip that they did. There's no such thing as a magic bullet, because when you look at it like that, it can get you in risky investments, right? So don't think about any magic bullet. Do you want to add anything?
And I think this also leads to a little bit of the shiny object syndrome, right? Like that we all have. I think we have that as well, and we have to tell ourselves, look, we need to focus on this one thing, because when we first started, we're like, wait, which strategy is the right strategy? Should I do this? And then we see somebody doing Airbnb, we're like, oh, what if we did that? And when we started doing real estate, we saw so many of the people that were in real estate for about 5 to 10 years when we started. We saw that almost none of them had really scaled one strategy. None of them had truly become financially free, because they had done one flip here and they had done, one Airbnb there. And that's not, so they're growing, 1 inch in 12 different directions rather than 12 inches in one direction, right? And so we quickly realized that there is no one solution, one magic bullet. The key is to pick one strategy and then just master it.
So again, to recap, the 3 pillars of wealth, these are the timeless principles that you always want to think about. Number 1, as we are having this conversation, money is losing value sitting in our bank accounts, right? Because of inflation. Invest that money. Second, and be invested long term. It's not about timing the market, it's about time in the market. Second, stack your assets, because any asset you create is going to have 4 advantages: cash flow appreciation, tax shelter, and debt pay down, right? And consistency over magic bullets. Don't worry about magic bullets. Focus on consistency. How can you focus on longevity? Those are the 3 pillars of wealth.
Yeah, and guys, as you have any takeaways or anything that hits home, please put in the chat. We'd love to know what's resonating. But we thought that this would be a good time to talk about this topic in terms of getting clarity over your goals and picking the right strategy, because we do this all the time, especially towards the end of the year, where we did a session on, all right, what are we trying to do in the next 12 months? What are our goals? And what are we going to do to get there, right? Which is why next we're going to talk about leveraging your vision, because that's what it starts. You need a destination that you're trying to get to first, and then just identifying your destination and your goal, then you can reverse engineer and say, okay, this is the strategy, or this is what I need to do that's going to get me there. So we're going to talk about both those things today.
Great.
And as you can tell, we're still recovering from our Palak's still recovering from a bronchitis, which is pretty bad.
So our whole family was sick for it's a month now, and I'm on my 2nd set of antibiotics, and it's been brutal. Except I feel, and I've talked about this before, I feel very fortunate that at this point our investment strategy is set, and it takes a bit to set it up, right? Like don't think that this, you're doing something wrong if you've been investing for 6 months and it hasn't happened yet. It takes a bit to set it up, but at this point, our investment strategy is set up in a way that it runs on autopilot. And there were 2 weeks straight where we couldn't get out of bed. Like the virus that hit us was insane. And it made me feel grateful to have set this up. So if you're considering waiting till next year, waiting 6 months, waiting till the holidays are coming, let's wait. No, you need to start now, because none of us know what's going to happen in future. Start setting yourself up now. There's never going to be a good time. All right. So do you want to talk about this?
Yeah. So, as I was saying that what comes first, sometimes, we talk to a lot of people, a lot of investors, and they're like, oh, I want to buy this deal, but that deal sounds really good, but that one's a foreclosure property, or this one, there's different shiny objects, right? And people start looking at deals before kind of figuring out where they're trying to go. So I would say take a step back and start with your vision first. And I'll tell you why that was important for us. And that really helped us. Knowing our vision really helped us build the business in a way that we are able to, it wasn't another 9 to 5, right? We work 5 hours a week and our portfolio grows, $2 to $3 million every year. It's because we built the systems and processes and teams, because we were very clear from the beginning that we didn't want another 9 to 5. We didn't want to be in the job site every day while the rehab was going on. We didn't want to be taking tenant phone calls every day, right? So knowing that vision of what it is for you, and it may be different for you. Maybe you love being on site, and maybe you love doing being a part of the rehab. That's okay, but having that vision. So for us, it was, look, we want to create passive income, we want to create wealth, and we want to do it in a way that doesn't sacrifice time with our family, because that's ultimately what we wanted. And that's why we didn't want our 9 to 5 jobs in the first place, right? So having that vision is super important. Second is, once you have that vision of whatever that vision looks like for you, then set your goals, because what do you need to accomplish in the next 3 months, in the next 6 months, in the next year? And we do this exercise all the time in our program, which is like, look, what do you need to achieve in a year? And then in order to achieve that goal in the next year, what do you need to do in the next 6 months, and then the next month? So breaking the goals down and putting a timeline around those goals makes it really, really, much more compelling to follow them, and there'll be less distractions if you do that. And then once you set your goals, then really, then it comes down to action, right? And this question comes up a lot, is, but where do I find the time? Like, I already have a full-time job. We have kids, and where do you really find the time to fit real estate investing in there, right? And Palak has this thing which she talks about, which is, look, we spend, between the two of us, like, and this is true for both of us, we went the traditional route, right? We did a 4-year degree, we got a bachelor's degree, both of us got a master's degree. We worked 15 years in corporate, trying to climb the corporate ladder, and really, even at the end of that, in 15 years, we didn't have financial freedom, right? In 20 years of working in, doing your master's and working in corporate, we didn't have financial freedom. Real estate got us there in 4 years, right? It got us financial freedom in 4 years. So really what it comes down to is, yes, I'm going to spend some time on real estate in building up my team and building the assets, but it can get me there a lot faster. And it's important to know that while you're taking action, because you're going to be uncomfortable a bit. You're going to be, you're going to have to learn new skills. But all of that is worth it, because, as we say, building wealth is not convenient, but it's incredible once you do it. And so action is a big part of it. And then that'll lead you to success. Is this resonating? Does this make sense, guys? Would love to hear what's resonating in the chat. If you think something helps, please put it. It helps.
Can you all drop in the chat what has been most helpful so far? And we have so much more amazing stuff we're gonna share. So just let us know in chat. So far, what did you find the most helpful? What are you gonna implement right away? What's your biggest takeaway?
Oh, Sonia says resonates 100%. Appreciate that. Yeah. And this is, Greta says it's not about timing the market, it's about time in the market. Sarah says the imagery makes it easier to understand. Oh, that's, I'm glad. We did spend a lot of time on the image, well, Palak did.
No, it too. No, we really, that's how we learn the best. That's how I learn the best. So I always think that it's so nice to have a visual and it sticks better.
Yeah. Emily says, appreciate the idea of setting a goal and working backwards from the mini goals.
By the way, Emily, I think I saw one of your posts about either it was about your why or your vision. It was awesome. Thanks for doing that.
Mary says would like to set up passive income. That's perfect. Excellent.
Great.
So thank you guys for sharing. And so, and as you're doing your vision, like this is something that I always have to remind ourselves. And when we sit down to do our vision for next year, we're going to do this and you should too. One is dream big, because what happens is that we always, when we're setting our visions, at least that happened to us when we first got started, we were like, yeah, we can buy, 5 houses in like 3 years or something. And we're like, yeah, but that's not going to get us where we need to go. And so we were like, no, let's dream big. What if we were able to get to a $5 million portfolio or $10 million portfolio in 10 years? And we got there in actually 4 years. Yeah. But it's very important to dream big, because if you don't dream it, it's not going to happen. If you don't think it's going to happen, it's not going to happen, right? So dreaming big, setting your goals and taking action.
And, I think in what was it, 2019 or 2020? Oh, 2020, beginning of 2020, I was on a podcast and I said, beginning of 2020, I was on a podcast and I said, my goal, if you think about goal vision, in the next 5 years, I would love it if Nidhi could quit his job and join the business full-time. Within 6 months, he was full-time in the business. And so the thing is, if you don't set your mind to it, it's never going to happen. But as soon as you say, okay, this is what I'm going to do, I can guarantee you it could happen faster than you ever imagined.
Yeah. And you have to say it out loud. Like think, if you're into affirmations, just to kind of quickly talk, like I won't spend too much time on that, but affirmations is incredible. We do that all the time. Every morning we're like, this is our goal, and we talk about it as if it's already happened. We do that with our kids every morning when we drop them off to school. We basically do affirmations with them. We say, I'm going to have a great day today. I'm going to make friends. I'm going to learn. And that positive intent really sets their day. And it's the same thing with us, right? We rewire our brain every day to make it positive, because that's all the positivity comes from within. So.
And Vanessa was in our mastery. So we have a portfolio program, which is a 3-month program. Then we have a next level mastery program. So Vanessa is on her 3rd, 4th deal, I think. And she was saying that she's got Post-its in her house, right? What did she say? Money comes to me easily, frequently. She said the road to success is not a straight line. Like she's got all these Post-its, because the more you see it and the more you think about it, the more it gets ingrained.
Yes.
That's the whole point.
Yes. Fantastic. So that was about sort of visioning and knowing your why, understanding your vision, all that stuff. Now let's talk about different real estate strategies, right? So this is why we started investing in real estate. This is sort of our goals when we started, right? To create generational wealth. We were both immigrants. We didn't have any money when we came here. When we started investing in real estate, we scraped together somehow $25,000 for the first deal. And so we didn't come from wealth. And so generational wealth was important to us. Passive income was important to us because we wanted there to be, we didn't want to, when we first actually started real estate, somebody gave us this, a real estate veteran we talked to gave us this advice, which is you don't get rich in real estate by peddling real estate. Mm-hmm. You get rich in real estate by owning real estate for a long period of time. And so we were very clear when we first started that we didn't want to do flips, for instance. We didn't want to be involved in real estate from a transactional perspective. We want to be involved in real estate from a buy and hold perspective, because that's where the true wealth gets accumulated, right? And then so that's the passive income piece. And then also time and location freedom. We want to be able to work from wherever. And so now we travel in summer, we were in Spain for a month. Both of our parents live in India. So we were there for a month, and our real estate didn't stop because, again, we created the business in a way where we had systems and processes and teams that allows us to be wherever and still grow the business.
Check the chat.
Yeah.
Very good. Thank you.
Chad has a great question. What did your day-to-day look like schedule-wise while you're both working with kids? Did you make calls on lunch breaks or visit properties? How did you swing that? And was it consistently the same person doing the same things, or did you or whoever is available? Can I say one thing? I'm going to let you talk about this because you're this is your thing, but I'll just say this one thing that that's such a great question, Chad. When we first started investing in real estate, we both had full-time jobs, really busy full-time jobs. Palak was traveling internationally for her job. I was working 60 plus hours in my job because I was, in a leadership program, and we both had crazy jobs. We had a 2-year-old and a 2-month-old, right? And so we were super, super busy. And we didn't have any help here because we didn't have family. And I'm going to tell you that those 2 years when we first started, when we have those young kids and super busy jobs, those 2 years were the most productive years of our adult life. Like, we literally did more in those 2 years than we've even done since then. And so it's because our why was really, really strong. So what I'm going to say is that there's so many things that we spend our time on day to day that you could easily eliminate and focus. But know that even though you're busy, that can be your best and most productive time.
Actually, can you also talk a little bit about, remember that time when you said we were like trying to hustle and make progress, but somehow we were not motivated enough, or something, things weren't like clicking. And can you talk a little bit about like just letting the pain fester?
Yeah. So, this is something that happens to, I think, and I don't know if you guys can relate to it. If so, let me know in the chat, because when we were starting out, the first 3 or 4 months, we were like, understanding the burst strategy and, trying to learn all these things and trying to take action. But there was days and weeks where we literally couldn't do anything. Right. And it was because, and we were like, why is that? Like, why is it? And we would suddenly get this burst of energy, and we do something for a week, and then we'll drop off again. And then we realized that we were just too comfortable where we were, right? We had a paycheck coming in, we had a good house, we had a family. And so, traditionally, or at least theoretically, we had a good life, but it wasn't what we needed to be. And so we got too comfortable. And so I told her when I came back from work one day, I was like, we need to stop being so comfortable. We need to let the pain fester. And I'll tell you how we did that. So when our son was born, I got I'd worked with my company for like 12 years, right? And my boss said, well, yeah, you got to come back to work in a week and a half. I was like, well, I need some paternity leave. Like, you cannot have me back at work in a week and a half. That doesn't make any sense. And she was like, nope. And there was so much pressure, and I had to go back in. And I told Palak, I was like, I'm not going to forget this. I'm going to let this pain fester. I'm going to let it, because a lot of times society tells you, forget about the pain, work through it, it'll get better. I was like, no, I don't want it to get better. I don't want to become numb to my own pain. Right. And so I want to make that pain fester. I used to tell myself every day, and tell Palak every day when I came back from work, or I hate my job, even though I didn't really hate my job. I hate my job because I
hated parts of it.
I hated parts of it, and I hated the fact that somebody else controlled my time, and somebody else controlled whether I got promoted and all that. So I was like, we got to remind ourselves that we can do a lot better. And so it's just reminding yourself.
And then there's one more question, actually. Can you go up? Here it is.
Oh yeah. Kay asks, is your strategy passive? How much time do you spend managing your portfolio? Did you scale up and now maintaining, or are you still acquiring? Fantastic question. So Kay, I would say that it depends on what your goals are, right? So for us, our first goal was to quit our jobs, and then now our goal is to keep growing. We don't want to stop because we love real estate. And so when I say we work about 5 hours a week on not just maintaining our portfolio, but even growing our portfolio. So every year we acquire about $3 billion worth of real estate. 2.5-ish. This year, our goal is to do 3. And we do that because we have systems and processes and teams in place that allows us to do that. And we still only work 5 hours a week. So to give you an example, we bought a portfolio of 7 units, which is 3 duplexes and a single family. We bought that while we were away in India. The deal came to us through a wholesaler. We put the offer in. We got the property under contract while we were there. Our contractor started the rehab work because he knows exactly what to do when he goes in. We have like a template of here's what you need to do. Like it's like so dialed down that he knows what to do. By the time I think we visited the properties. I don't think you ever visited those properties. I went there once after the rehab was done, just to kind of see how things were. And then we rented them out, refinanced them. And this is pretty much all virtual through our systems and processes and teams throughout, right? Our realtor knows exactly what to do to go in and take pictures and videos and send it to us. And she knows, what to look for, because we've trained her that way. We've given her like, here's the things to look for when you go look at the property. And so everything is so systematized and dialed in that allows us to be really hands-free. And it takes time to build that, right? So that's what we teach as well, right? So we teach you how to build the business in a way that's that you have those systems and processes and teams in place and how to build those. But I would say it takes time. It takes 3 to 6 months to build your team, to set those processes in place. So initially it might take you a little bit longer, but once you're there, once you have the team, then it can, you can slowly remove yourselves and make it more automated.
Also, you asked me to talk about this and I forgot about Chad's question. So you asked like how we handled everything when we both had full-time jobs. I'm going to say not very gracefully, like it doesn't look pretty. So don't assume that like we had it all down and we figured it all out. And it's not like that. It's not very smooth and, anything like that. But the thing that I always had in my mind was, if I'm going to build this new business, I'm going to build it on my terms. So this is just my own decision. You'll have something else that's more important to you. My thing was, I always wanted my kids to be with me. They were so little at that time. And so I would take my kids to show properties because we were self-managing at that time. That I really wanted to understand, like, is this something we really even want to do? So I would take my kids everywhere. And I was completely unapologetic about it. And that is the beauty of being in business for yourself, is you can build it any way you want. And most people are okay to follow your directions as long as you set the expectations up front, right? So I'm showing up to these properties with my kids, trying to show the units to new tenants. They're completely okay with it. They know that the next time they call me for, when something breaks, my kids might be in the background, because that's just the expectations I had set up front, right? So what I'm trying to say is, as you build a new business that's outside of your previous life, you can build it on your own terms. You can build it in a way that feels good to you, and whatever that means to you, right? I also remember one time when I was on the phone with an insurance guy, and we were trying to find a new insurance person, and both my kids were napping at that time. This is after I'd quit my job. And I was like, because my kids are napping. And that's it. That I'm the business owner. I'm giving you my business. I don't have to wear a suit and show up the way I used to in corporate. I'm going to do it my way. And so just build it the way you want. It can be whatever works according to your lifestyle that you want to create. So I hope that helps.
Yeah. And Valerie has a question, just curious how we can get creative with that first investment. 25K doesn't go far in the California market. Great question.
And that's 25K is very specific to us and our strategy.
Yeah.
And how we teach it.
So 25K absolutely is enough when you do BRRRR. But here's the thing. I would highly encourage you, and we get a lot of people who live in California and New York come work with us. And I'll tell you that the best thing you can do is invest out of state. And that's what we also teach, because the thing is that in California, I would try to, if there's 2 markets that you're trying to invest in that I would ask you to stay away from, it's California and New York, unless you're buying your own primary residence. That's fine, right? Obviously, you're going to do that. But when it comes to investment properties, New York and California are not only very, very expensive, and volatile, but also it becomes, they're not very landlord friendly, right? And so you want to pick a state where it's sustainable to have more and more properties, because New York and California are very, very hard to invest in as investors. So, but that's great. Actually, in a way, it's a blessing in disguise, because now you can go, you're not limited by where you live. You can literally invest no matter, in a different state where the numbers make sense. And the way you do it, and that's what we teach, is like, how do you build the systems and processes and teams in that local market where you're investing, because that's what will allow you to build wealth in a different state or a different city.
And we leverage that 25K. You're not buying $25,000 properties. You're going to leverage that money, and
Yes.
you're going to use that money to fund your acquisition and construction. Because, the first time we did it, we didn't realize we could borrow money for construction. So you're going to leverage the 25K, work with a short-term lender, and leverage the money for acquisition.
And we're going to talk about this briefly towards the end, where we talk about commercial financing, because that's a big, big part of how we scale. So we're going to cover that, but great question. Benita is asking, I'm curious, what kind of neighborhoods do you invest in? A, B, or C is a recommendation where to start. So in terms of where to start, it depends on what your goals are a little bit, and what neighborhoods you understand, what states you know. But yes, we would say stay away from A neighborhoods and stay away from D neighborhoods, because A is going to be very, very expensive. When I say A neighborhoods, where properties are like $600,000, $700,000, $800,000 on average, it's going to be very, very, it's risky to invest in those markets, because you're not going to be able to rent it out for that much, and you're not going to get any cash flow. And stay away from D markets, which is where there's, the crime rate is so high,
the eviction
rate is really high. It's going to be difficult to do business there. So I would stick to B and C, although it's hard to differentiate, and it's difficult to answer this question in 2 minutes, but that's the short answer, is stay away from A and D, focus on B and C. Hopefully that helps.
So maybe what if we finish talking about things, and then
let's go back to the deck.
Questions?
We have a lot more to go through still. So since we already started talking about BRRRR strategy, it's the perfect segue. What is the BRRRR strategy and why we chose it? So when we first started investing, our first investment was actually just a rent-ready rental, right? And we bought this property. We put about $60,000 down. We bought the property. The property was worth, I think, $150,000, but with closing costs and 25% down, that's how much we had to bring to the table, is around $60,000, and that was a lot. And we were like, wait, how do we bring $60,000 every time we have to make an investment? That way, we can only maybe invest in one deal a year, because it takes time to save up that much. And so even though the rent-ready rental was great, it was a good investment, we were still getting 8-9% returns annually. We're like, wait, this is going to be very slow growth. So here's how we thought about it. Like, here's how we stumbled into the BRRRR strategy, and here's how we thought about it. Like, wait, if we get 2 houses a year, you just buying rent-ready rentals, we could get to 30 properties in 15 years. That could help us retire, but we don't want to wait 15 years to retire. We're like, wait, we want to do it sooner. So we were very clear, as I said, we didn't want to flip or wholesale, because that was just peddling real estate. That doesn't really build wealth over time. You could do it on the side if you want it, but we never really wanted to do it. And so we want to create wealth and passive income, and we wanted to do more deals a year. We wanted to do 3-5 deals a year, 10 deals a year. And so that's where we found the BRRRR strategy. And for those of you who don't know what BRRRR is, let me just go over real quick. So you buy a distressed property, you rehab it, and you force the appreciation, right? Instead of buying it a property rent ready, you're buying it for cents on the dollar because it needs a lot of work. And then by rehabbing it, you force the appreciation. And then you rent it out. And then once you're done renting it out, you refinance and put all your cash out. Right. So that means is that instead of spending $60,000 down payment on a rent ready house, now I'm left with almost zero in the deal. Right. Like I pull out every single dollar. So now I can use the same $25,000 that I started with, and then buy the second house and the third house and the fourth house. So it removes the capital constraint. So that was a big reason for why we got attracted to the BRRRR strategy. Does that making sense? Like the math in terms of how BRRRR works and the power of BRRRR? Because I think it took us a while to figure this out. So that's why I want to make sure it's clear for people who don't know what BRRRR is. And so that's what helped us grow from 25K to $10 million in 5 years. And now, by the way, when we do a single family BRRRR, we don't even bring 25K to the table, we bring 10K to the table, because now we have the experience, we have the lender connections. And once you do 2 or 3 deals, once you have a few deals under your belt, you can do that as well. And the 10,000 we pull out, by the way, after the deal is done, and we reinvest in the next deal.
And then it becomes a zero money down strategy.
Right.
Because you pull all the money out.
Right. And so this is how we thought of scaling, right? And this is just because I love numbers and I wanted to share like the power of what BRRRR can do. So in the first year, say you buy 3 houses. And by the way, that's so doable. Like people in our program are on their 4th, 5th deal in 6 months, 7 months, 8 months. 3 houses is definitely doable in the first year with the BRRRR strategy. And so if you think of the profit that one property is going to make you over the next 10 years, and if you times that by 3 for the 3 houses, that's 555,000. So that includes the forced appreciation that you'll have in the property by rehabbing it. That includes the cash flow that you're going to get over the next 10 years. That includes the debt pay down because now your mortgage is getting paid, right? So those 3 things, and with moderate increases in rent. And I've assumed 3% increase in rent, but there'll be years where, like last year, where it's gone up 10%, right? So I'm just saying, even if the market goes up or down in 10 years, it's going to be okay. And that's one of the benefits of buy and hold investing, right? Even if the market goes down, it doesn't matter, because if the property is rented out, you're still cash flowing. But at some point, 10 years down the line, it'll be back up, right? And it'll average out. In the second year, say you buy 5 houses, that's your profit in the next 10 years. In the third year, you also buy 5 houses. By the way, you can do a lot more. 4th year, you scale up, right? 10 houses. 5th year, you scale another 10 houses. And so now you goes back to what Palak was saying about stacking your assets like pancakes, right? You keep accumulating these assets. And in 5 years, you can do 33 houses, and we are like 3 times this now. So this is very doable. And profit over the next 10 years is going to be $6 million, right? And that is assuming just moderate increases. So does this make sense? I just wanted to capture like visually the power of why we were able to retire in 4 years. You can do it.
And this is assuming you're only going to consistently be doing single family homes. You're not going to do that, right? Like our folks in our program, they accelerate. They go from single family homes and they start doing smaller multifamilies. So you're going to continue scaling up in various ways. And as you develop expertise, lenders are going to give you higher leverage. There's so much more that happens in here that can accelerate it even further. That's not even captured, right?
That's right. And so this is just to kind of share what's, the power of BRRRR essentially.
Yeah.
Okay.
I love it.
And then let's talk about BRRRR versus other strategies, because this, I think, is an important one to answer, and why we thought of like, what about Airbnb? And we do have a couple of Airbnbs, and I'll talk about that a little bit. What about Airbnb? What about flips? What about other strategies, medium-term rentals?
Yeah.
So let's talk about that, and the benefits of BRRRR and the reason why we picked BRRRR. But I'll tell you a couple of other things as well as I'm going through this. So the biggest reason as I said, for BRRRR was it removes the capital constraints, right? So instead of bringing $50,000-$60,000 to the table, you're now only bringing $10,000, $20,000, $25,000, and then as you do more deals, that number comes down. Number 2 is stability. I'll tell you, we own a couple of Airbnb rentals. Last year, they did great. This year, the revenue was like 30% of what it did last year. And also there is, things change in Airbnb because it's still new, right? So a city may decide, like in Philly, everybody that we knew who had an Airbnb in Philly went out of business. They're selling all their Airbnbs because the city suddenly decided it wants to discourage Airbnbs, right? So laws can change. It can be seasonal as well. So we like the stability with long-term rentals because it's been around for hundreds of years. Third is risk. So there's risk in any investment, obviously, but the reason we like long-term buy and holds and BRRRR specifically is that any asset, if you hold on to it for a long period of time, gets very forgiving. Even if 1 year the market dips and there's a recession and your market value goes down, it doesn't matter because you have it rented, right? You're not forced to sell it because you're making a cash flow on the property. And this happened to us actually in the 2008 crash. So Palak had a condo which he bought for like $150,000 or something. This was right before the crash. And then 2008 crash happened and the value went down to 90,000, right? You're like, oh, like that's a big drop. But the property was rented the entire time in the last 12 years. And we just sold it last year for $160,000. But guess what? In the last 12 years, we made a profit of close to $100,000. How? Because the property cash flowed every month for the last 12 years. The debt got paid down. The debt was like barely anything by the time we sold it, right? So all that included, and we bought it at the worst possible time in history.
This is the worst case scenario. Long-term holds, you're still going to make money.
Right. As opposed to doing an expensive flip, for instance, where the market tanks and you're kind of stuck. So that's why we like the low risk.
I was talking to another investor who was asking me recommendations for lenders. This investor is my peer. So they've done hundreds of flips, peer in a different way. And they were like, yeah, the values went down. I'm not going to make any money on this. I will not even cash flow if I rent it out, but there's no way to sell it right now. I will make a loss, right? So I'm going to rent it out, take a loss every month until the values go up, and then I'm going to try to sell it. So this is why, and we see this firsthand. This is why we think that, these things like flips are very high risk.
Yeah. And here's the thing though, with the BRRRR strategy, you can still sell a property every couple of years, and that's still flipping. If you need cash, you're like, hey, I'm just going to sell it and get some cash. But the idea is to keep as many properties. Remember, stacking your assets. That's what gets builds wealth in the long run. Next is passive income. Again, we wanted passive income. If you're flipping, the day you stop flipping, you stop making money. By stacking assets, we get more and more cash flow every month. And equity, right? The forced equity that you get from BRRRR is incredible. And so we talked about the power of being able to pull your entire cash out. It's because you're forcing the equity in a short amount of time, and long-term appreciation because you hold on to it for long term. So we talked about this, but these are the reasons why, again, we love long-term buy and holds and BRRRR. Again, your debt goes down over time because your renter is actually paying for it, your tenant is actually paying for it. And by the way, you probably know this already, but tax shelter, like the tax benefits of owning real estate is incredible. On our cash flows, it's almost
most of the cash flow gets offset by the depreciation. So you don't end up paying taxes on your cash flow the same way as you pay taxes on your W-2. It's not the same thing. It's not an apples to apples comparison. If you're trying to replicate your W-2 income with your cash flow, it's not going to be the same thing because your cash flow is not going to get taxed the same way, which is amazing. Yeah.
So $5,000 in cash flow a month versus $5,000 in 9 to 5. The 9 to 5, 5,000 is going to get taxed at whatever, 25, 30%. In real estate, there's barely going to be any tax at all. So that's the advantage of real estate. So these are just like, some of the strategies. The way we think of like other strategies is, sure, you can do those on the side if you want, and we do it, but our main focus is BRRRR because that's what we know builds wealth in the long run.
Can you go back to it just so quick recap. So if you compare BRRRR to other strategies, the reason we love BRRRR is it removes capital constraints. It's stable. A lot of these strategies that outside of BRRRR are very volatile. It's lower risk during a recession. It gives you passive income. Forced equity, which is insane. Like it's the same forced equity that a flipper would get when they flip the property, except you keep the property and the forced equity. Tax shelter, appreciation, and debt pay down. And it is insane amount of benefits to be able to do that. So that's why we love this strategy.
Yeah. Let's go back to a couple of the questions in the chat. Excuse me.
Why don't we, there's
You wanna
only
go
a
through the
couple more
slides? Okay.
Is that okay?
Yeah, let's do
Yeah,
that.
let's do that.
Okay, how do we supercharge the burst strategy? So we came across the burst strategy, then we took it and just like, turn it into something that we really wanted to grow the wealth really, really quickly. So how do we?
And can I just say something like whenever, BRRRR is a buzzword these days, so people talk about the BRRRR strategy a lot. But that's just the strategy. The beauty is in how we execute it. And that is what is different. We supercharge it by leveraging everything. Leverage your time, leverage your money, leverage your expertise. And that's what makes it different, the way we execute it. It's a whole different strategy in itself if you think about it.
Yeah.
So
and so let's talk about some of the specifics of what Palak just said. How do we supercharge it, right? So this is the scale framework, and this is what we also teach. But the scale framework is S is for scalable acquisitions and deal analysis, right? So here you want to first narrow down your neighborhood, identify your ideal property avatar, and which is what we talk about a lot, which is what kind of property do you want to invest in, and really hone in on that, and that'll eliminate 80% of the deals that are out there, and you can focus on the deals that are right for you, right? So that's the acquisitions piece. And then building a deal pipeline, right? Like how do deals come to you rather than you having to chase them, right? So building those connections, which will help you to build those deal pipeline. And then deal analysis. How do you analyze a deal in a way that is conservative? We are ultra conservative when we analyze deals, so that even if something happens, we are still protected. And so deal analysis is critical. We spend a lot of time in deal analysis. Next is cash flow profitability. This is about how do you rehab your property in a way that appeals to tenants, so you can get the maximum amount of rent, but also being careful not to over rehab it, not to under rehab it, to just right, the Goldilocks principle, right? So you can maximize your cash flow profitability. Third is adding value by renovations. This is where the rehab comes in. But again, what are the systems and processes you put in place where if you're investing out of state, or if you don't want to be at the job site every day, how do you build that in a way that your contractor is doing all the work, but it's getting done correctly, getting done on time, and getting done under budget, right? So that's sort of learning the rehab piece. Next is leveraging in commercial finance. So this is almost like a course in itself because it's super complicated. I come from a finance background, and it still took me a while to figure this out. But commercial finance is literally the most powerful thing that you can do for your business, because conventional finance gets us stuck, right? We got to 2 or 3 properties in conventional finance, and the banks were like, it's going to be harder for you to get more loans now because it went against our personal debt to income ratio. Whereas when you treat it like a business and use commercial financing, which again is, a lot to learn there, but it's worth it, because then you can truly scale to unlimited, number of houses and properties, because now you're running a business, and not just buying properties on the side. And then the last is exponential growth, which is again, like how do you do it in a way that it's repeatable, starting with how you look for deals, what kind of deals you look for, building the right team with the contractor and the lender and your realtor, and what you tell them, what kind of process you set up, and then kind of just it all comes together. But this is how I would say we supercharge it, because without this, you can maybe do like 1 BRRRR deal a year or 2 BRRRR deals a year. This is what allows you to scale rate to do 5-10 deals a year. And just to cover, and let me pause there, actually. Let me just see what's...
Let's finish it,
okay,
and then we'll do the things, because
right,
there's only 2 slides, right?
Yeah, so a couple of slides. So just in case somebody's curious how to work with us, this is what we
want to tell you about our program. So we have a 3-month program, and then we have a continuation program. I want you to stay with us for at least 1 year. 3 years is perfect. In 3 months, though, you will learn all the fundamentals. You have the scale modules, the modules that Nidhi just talked about. We break down the entire strategy very step by step. We have weekly calls, and actually now we have 2 calls a week. So you can attend either of them or both of them. You will find like-minded people to work with, and we have a private Facebook community. This is not like a program where we throw you in and just have you figure it out. This is very different. This is where we actually know people in the program. And so I know a couple of them have joined, and I know your names, like I know your faces, I know your struggles and what you're going through. So that's kind of what it's all about.
So yeah, if you want to just book a strategy session, actually Aviv is with us, who probably is one of the people that do the strategy session with.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just a way to see if, find out more about the program, to see if you're a good fit.
So you go to openspaceswomen.com/book a call. We're not just for women. Just so you know, that's how we started, but we're not just for women. And then, do you want to, yeah. And then if you want to connect with us, if you're already not connected, you can email us at info@openspacescapital.com or DM us on Instagram at openspaceswomen, just to give you the guys the.
Yeah. So let's just go back to a couple of the questions. I know we're short on time, so we're going to cover as many questions as we can. We appreciate everybody joining.
Let's just, whatever questions you have, drop them in the chat. We'll try to cover as much as possible. And then if you don't mind, can you all tell me in the chat what has been the most helpful today? What is the one biggest takeaway that you're going to take with you and implement next week? Drop it in the chat. So you know why we do this? We do this on all our coaching calls. We do this every time we have a workshop or a masterclass. It's because when you put things down in writing, when you type them up and you say them out loud, they stick better. Because what's going to happen? We're going to get done with these calls. We're going to get done with this workshop. You're going to go off. Our kids are probably going to be home in a few hours. They're going to jump on me. Somebody else will probably want to get paid for something and they'll call us. And, we have so many obligations and commitments. You forget what you learn, right? As we get older, it becomes less and less important. So putting it down allows it to register better. That's one reason. And the second reason is you found a takeaway. So Greta realized that she learned something new. And Nicole reads that takeaway and she's like, oh, I hadn't realized that. So it also helps each other, right? So that's why we do this.
Okay, great. So let me kind of cover a couple of the questions that are in there. Yeah. So Sean says, I wonder how well this will work at current rate levels. Will refinancing still empower the next deal in the same way? Fantastic question. So Sean, the way to think about this, and we're always bringing in lenders in a program to talk about this because the situation is ever changing, right? The interest rates. So the way I look at the interest rate environment is that, yes, interest rates are higher and your mortgage is going to be higher as a result. But what has also happened in the last year is that the rents are up significantly. They're up like 10, 12%, sometimes even more. Like in Philly, we used to charge like $1,500, and now it's up to like $1,650 in some cases, or $1,700, right? So that's a big increase. So what that means is that even though your mortgage is higher, your rent is going to be higher. So that offsets that. And the other piece is that at some point, the interest rates are going to go back down. Remember, like the Fed is trying to fight inflation. That's why they're increasing the interest rates. But at some point in the next 2 or 3 years, when the interest rates go down, you can refinance at the lower interest rate again. And now your mortgage is going to be lower, right? So you just even further increase your cash flow every month because your rent is going to stay the same, your mortgage is going to go down. So that's how I think about. And when we do the deal analysis, we actually put this in the spreadsheet so that you can really understand what's going on. Will the deal work at the current interest rates? And you need to account for that. Absolutely.
And by the way, we actually wrote an ebook on how to take advantage of the high interest rate environment. If you don't have that ebook, DM me on Instagram at Open Spaces Women, and somebody from our team will send it to you. Just say, hey, can I have the ebook on high interest rates? That's all you have to do. So DM us on Instagram, and it's broken down quite a bit.
Renee says, who takes care of all those toilets? That's hilarious. So not us. Yeah. So we have a property management company that does that. And, that's what we teach you as well, how to find one, how to get a good one. So yes, you don't want tenant phone calls and you wouldn't have to take them.
And I just want to say, like, we've done all this. So, we're not like coming at you with like, oh, we never touched it. We cleaned the first house, we cleaned it ourselves. We wanted to understand how it worked and we did it ourselves. This is not coming from like just something that we overheard somewhere. We've tried everything. We figured out how it works. Then we've put systems in place, and that's how we're building this up. We're not, we're in the trenches with you guys.
Yeah. And then Renee also asked, do you have multifamily apartments? Yes, we do. So we do smaller multis. So we do everything from duplexes, triplexes, quadplexes. We've done a 10-unit building. We've done a 15-unit building. So this is very scalable as you do, even larger projects. Absolutely. But always start with single family. This is what I always say, always start with single family because the risk is lower. You're still learning. That's your playground, right? So get it right first on a couple of single family deals, then scale up and do bigger deals. Janelle says, I'm just getting started. I own a single family home as a rental. What is my first step? Do I refinance my rental, borrow off the equity, or neither? So Janelle, I was going
to say, can I answer?
Yeah, please.
Okay. All right. So if you have a rental, you have one rental, right? And you're trying to figure out how can I leverage it to grow further. Number one, I would learn how to do commercial finance. You don't want to just refi it. If you own it with a conventional loan, or if you own it, if you bought it cash and you don't owe anything on it, don't just go out and refi it. Really understand how commercial financing works. Once you understand commercial finance, you're going to change your mind about how you want to leverage that rental. And that would be the step that I would say, take that first. Learn commercial finance before you do anything.
Yes. And Rashmi says, what after the 3 months of the program, what would we learn in the extended program? So Rashmi, that's about after the 3 months is about implementation and doing bigger deals, right? So first you'll do a single family, then you're like, all right, now I'm ready to do a duplex, triplex, or quadplex. How do I do that? So it's kind of working through and scaling.
And think about how much time, and this is the example I always like to give, like, think about how much time you've spent building your career, right? Who asks? Rashmi, what's your background? Can you drop it in the chat? What do you do for a living right now? How many years did you go to school for? And I'd love to know that about all of you. Drop it in the chat. How many years did you go to school for whatever you're doing? And how many years of experience do you have working on your current job? And the reason I'm asking you this question is it took me a while to understand that so Rashmi is a software engineer. She's an immigrant from India, like me. She was here for a master's and then 10.5 years in tech, right? I would say give yourself at least a fraction of that time to build and scale your portfolio. And once you just set your mind to it, like, okay, this is going to take me a few years to learn and build, right? You're going to have a lot of learnings in the first few years. Once you kind of get that down, it feels much easier. You give yourself a lot of grace that way.
Yeah.
But it really just takes a good 3 months to get it down and build the right foundation.
Olive says, biggest takeaway is getting out of my comfort zone, don't get numb to the pain, and breaking down goals and assigning a timeline. Love that. NBHISES, how often can we refinance? There's no limit to how many times you can refinance, unlimited times. There's obviously a cost associated with that, so you have to make sure that makes sense. But we do it once every 1, 2, 3 years, depending on whenever we want to tap into the equity that we have. Sophie asked a really good question. I know we're over time, guys, so we really appreciate you. We can spend a few more minutes if that's okay with you guys.
Is it good to stay on for a bit longer? Just say yes in the chat or give us a thumbs up.
Yeah, I would love to answer some of these questions. So Sophie says, should I get my real estate license? So we actually, Palak actually got her real estate license.
Yeah, because
how many times did you use it?
I never hung it. 0.
So yeah, you don't need to get your real estate license. And this is one of the things we always talk about is one of the ways, the 80-20 rule, right? Focus on the 20% of the things that are going to get you 80% of the results. A lot of people are like, yeah, I want to get a realtor's license. I want to get a general contractor company, construction company. I want to start a wholesaling business so I can find my own deals. You don't need to do all that. Focus on, there's 3 things that we ask you to focus on, right? Deal analysis, learning and truly mastering commercial finance. And number 3 is building your team and managing it. if you do those three things, that's what's going to help you scale, and say no to everything else. Let's see. Let's take a couple more questions. I think we covered them all.
Somebody's asking, can you start with a multifamily instead of a single family? So yeah, so if you're just starting out and you're thinking, okay, why do I have to start with a single family? Should I start with a multifamily? In certain cases, I think it's not a bad idea. If you're an experienced investor and if you've done rehabs already, maybe you can start with multifamily. But my advice is always, this is a strategy where you're going to learn so much in a short period of time. Reduce most of the risk and make it as predictable as possible so you can profit from your first deal. So that's why we recommend starting with a single family.
Yeah, these are all such amazing questions, guys. We appreciate you spending time with us. We love talking real estate, so this is great. But yeah, any last questions? Anything else you want to add? Yeah, so I still think that I need to begin. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, if you want to start with a multi, that's totally fine.
Yeah.
Kay says, if you start with your 3-month program, can you move to the longer programs? Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's the only way we have that you can start. You start just with the 3-month program because that's enough to build a very solid foundation. And then,
Mike asks, can you purchase your home under an LLC? Absolutely.
Yes.
I would highly recommend it. And that's what we teach is like always buy it under an LLC. You don't want a rental property in your personal name for multiple reasons. For, lawsuits, in case of financing, for commercial lenders only work with LLCs. So absolutely do that. Mohammed says, great presentation. Thank you. Appreciate that. Leyland says, unemployed right now, got laid off from work, used to be in the hospital for 10 years. What can I start with no money? What I can start with no money?
So can I?
Yeah, please.
Can I get? So I think that if you don't have money, my recommendation is first figure out how you can build an income. So whether it's through real estate or outside of real estate, I don't recommend that like you quit your job right away with no income and just focus on building a real estate portfolio, because it takes a bit to catch momentum, right? And so I really think that the first step should be figure out how to build up an income, whether it's through getting another job or starting a business, maybe a services-based business that doesn't have a lot of capital need. Do that first, then move over to investing. That's always my advice.
Yes, that's great. And then Sonia says, can you make this presentation available after today? We're not sure. We'll try. The thing is, like, we're not sure how to send it to people as well.
Big, and so we haven't.
But we might.
Rashmi, realistically, how many doors have you seen your students buy in 1 year, 2 years? 1 year is enough for you to build a $1 million portfolio. I have seen so many people do that. I always say 1 million 1 year. If you give yourself 1 million 1 year, that goal, it's totally doable.
Yes.
3 to 5 years, you can make work optional if you're very serious about it. But this is how I look at it, Rashmi. And I think, as women, like, we put so much pressure on ourselves to do everything. I just think about it this way. You have a full-time job, right? Say it takes you 6 months to build a $1 million portfolio. Amazing. Hey, maybe something personal happens. Maybe it takes you 18 months to build a $1 million portfolio. That's totally okay. Something is going to trigger, be a catalyst to your growth, and suddenly you'll double your portfolio in a few months. So don't put that pressure on yourself when you start, because you already have a job. You probably already have a family. We're dealing with a lot of stuff. So kind of, just focus on learning and starting, and then don't make it so intimidating, right? But that's what I would say. $1 million in 1 year. Kelly's crossed. Kelly's is 2.6 million in 2 years. So there's a lot you can do here.
Yeah. These are all fantastic questions. I'll just say, Rashmi says, great presentation. Thank you so much. I would love to say if Aviv can say hello to everyone. Aviv's on our team. And if you fill out if you book a time with us, with our team, most likely you'll talk to Aviv or Angela. So I figured I'd ask him to say hello since he's here. Hi, Aviv.
Wait,
Oh, we can't hear
we
you.
cannot hear you.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, Aviv's awesome. So, and when you book a
Yeah.
time, yeah, go ahead,
There
Aviv.
you are.
I just bought a new computer, so I had a new setup. Sorry. Hey everyone, good to meet you. Thank you for being here with us today.
Yeah, and Aviv's great. Like when you book a time with us, it's just, it's just going over what your goals are, seeing if you're a good fit and answer any questions that you have.
Yeah.
So it's a pretty cool call.
He's also very funny.
Yeah.
We have a team Slack channel, and Aviv finds the funniest
Gifts.
gifts in there. He's hilarious. You'll enjoy your time with him.
All right.
Thank you. Well, it's really important for you guys to have fun in the process. Otherwise, it's not really worth it. And we really learn from you here, Palak, where if you're not having fun, if you're not casual about it, then, why do this to begin with?
Yeah, exactly. I love that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Aviv, so Nidhi is dropping a link to book a call with us, but Aviv, I don't know if you have access to your Calendly link. If you want to drop that in here for the pre-call, that'd be
Yeah,
great.
absolutely. I'll drop my link as well. Thanks.
And so there is an application process. We're going to ask you a ton of questions. Take your time, fill it out. It just allows us to get to know you better. Yeah.
Yeah, this is so amazing. I'll give Aviv a few seconds to drop the link.
And
but
just, kind of like words, some last few, what do you say? Last few words.
last few words. I would say, so can I just say one thing is that this is the end of 2022. This is the time to start.
Wait, say it again. I want to record it.
This is Palak. Okay. So this is end of 2022, right? And this is what we're going to do in the next couple of weeks. We're going to go on vacation the last week of December. We're going to take that time to reset for next year. And what does that mean? Visualizing, creating a game plan for what we want to achieve next year, dreaming big, coming up with specific goals. And by the way, we don't just do business goals. When we're doing our planning, we do individual goals. Like for instance, like for me, who do I want to be? What's that thing you said? I love it. Where somebody said to us, when you're talking to each other, say,
oh yeah. Oh, can I
Yeah.
tell you guys, this is really fun. Okay. So I heard this story about this. I forget his name. This guy is a corporate anthropologist. Okay. So what does that mean? I think he's like a culture guy. So what he does is every year, so his wife and him, they work together just like we work together. Every year, at the end of the year, he has to go into his wife's office and mic somebody. And his wife says to him, okay, please take a seat. And then she says, Mike, you're fired from the position of Mike 2022. And then he has to be like, all right, fine. Then he goes out, closes the door, comes back in. And then she says, Mike, you're hired for the position of Mike 2023. Give yourself permission to just reinvent yourself. Like that's what they do, right? They reinvent. So that's what we were saying. Like what does Emily 2023 look like? What does Nidhi 2023 look like? What do I want to be like? This is the next season of our lives, and give yourself the permission, whatever ritual makes sense to you, like give yourself the permission to reinvent yourself. I love that. Thanks for reminding me.
Yeah, because we have to do that every couple of years. We do it every year, but just reinvent yourself. Like, and it's so much more fun when you do it together. It's then you can hold each other accountable and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But anyway.
And then Aviv put his link in the chat too. So
yeah,
if you want to work with him directly, you can use his link.
Yeah. And then Renee asks one last question and then we'll say goodbye is, why wouldn't a positive cash flowing multifamily property qualify for 90% funding or even seller financing and then private? So there's multiple ways to finance a multifamily, and we do that too. The way we do it, we only have to bring 10% of the purchase price and 0 for rehab because we finance everything. So the same thing for multifamilies. But the reason we say start with single families because the risk is a bit lower, especially if you don't have any prior construction experience. The rehab is not easy, right? To find a contractor to manage it. The first time you want to do it in a small enough project where even if it if you go over budget a little bit, it's okay, it's manageable. If you start with $1 million deal, the risk is that much higher. That's the idea. But then, yes, that's the goal, is to work up towards a multifamily property. Fantastic, guys. So good to see everybody. Yeah, we'll hope to see you, on the other side if you set up time with Aviv. But great to thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. We can unmute and say goodbye.
Have a good one.
Bye. See you guys.
See you guys. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.